What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and if you're out here looking to improve your team in fantasy football, this is the video for you because today I am going to talk through my 6 must-buy trade targets for Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Some of these buys are going to be for 4-2 or 5-1 or 6-0 teams that are looking to make their already great teams even better. And some of these buys are going to be for people that are scratching and clawing. Are you 2-4? Are you 3-3? Are you 1-5? Looking to make one last push for the playoffs? This is the video for you. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. And the first player on our radar as a buy is just going to be all of the Baltimore Ravens here. We have Lamar Jackson, we have Zay Flowers, and we have Derrick Henry. This is, of course, these first 2 buys up top here are going to be for the top dogs, right? We have, are you 5-1? Are you 6-0? Are you trying to make your team better and get some upgrades in? I think the Ravens are a great team to try and go out there and pluck these players off of 1-5 teams or 2-4 teams. If somebody out there drafted Lamar Jackson early, or if they drafted Derrick Henry early, they're probably not in a fantastic spot, right? Of course, Derrick Henry has the good game early on. He then had a decent game last week, but if somebody out there drafted him in the early second round, they're probably not doing amazing. Similar deal with Lamar Jackson. But I do think the minute Lamar comes back after this Week 7 bye, that there's going to be fireworks for this offense. Now, I will say as well, I think buying players on bye, right? I do want to kind of hammer home the idea that the Ravens are on bye, and if a team out there is like 1-5 or 2-4, they need wins right now. Like, they can't afford to wait for Derrick Henry after the bye week. They can't afford to wait for Lamar Jackson after the bye week. So can you take advantage of that, buy them on a discount to give them players that are maybe in a good matchup this week to go out there and score points for their team while you are getting better for the back half of the season on your own squad. Now, of course, I don't have to do a lot of convincing here. Like, all 3 of these players are verifiably good. You have Lamar Jackson. He was at a 25-plus point per game pace before getting hurt in Week 4. He is due back after the bye week. He should be already good to go, fresh legs, all of the above. And this team with the Ravens are in a unique spot here, right? Because they are 1-5, fighting for a playoff spot in their own right here on the other side of the bye. But they're still, by all of the Vegas lines and everything, around 50-50 odds to make the playoffs. Like, there is a real scenario here where Lamar Jackson comes out of the bye, hair on fire, and they claw back to sneak into the wild card and have like not a historic season, but on a per game basis for Lamar and all these guys to just absolutely ball out. You also have Zay Flowers in the mix here, who has looked a lot better this season. Now, people kind of forget the first 3 games with a healthy Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers is the wide receiver 13 in points per game. He's kind of fallen off since then, but as soon as he gets Lamar Jackson back, I think he'll be a great wide receiver too. He's 8th in target share at 27%, 12th in first read share, 12th in missed tackles forced per reception, 15th in yards per out run. He's playing good football this year. He just hasn't had his quarterback for the last few weeks. And then I'll also add that the shootout potential for this team is so huge because this is going to be a team similar to the Cowboys where they're going to scratch and claw to get wins, but their defense is going to let them down. Their defense right now is bottom 5 in EPA per play allowed, in this range with the Cowboys, the Dolphins, and the Bengals. Like, those are the 3 defenses right now where if any player plays them in fantasy, they're pretty much a must start. And now the Ravens defense probably going to improve a little bit after the bye week, but they're still just not that good. So you now have this environment where their backs are against the wall, 1-5. They need to win games. Lamar Jackson's going to play with his hair on fire, but their defense is going to let them down to a certain point where now the Ravens are going to score 1 billion points every game to try and keep their playoff hopes alive. And that's an environment I want fantasy football studs wrapped up in. Now, when we talk about what we are buying these players for, we are going to go to fantasycalc.com/databases where they take trades from millions of leagues out there and they pump them out as kind of free public data for us to look through. So we'll just kind of bounce around. Let's see, what can you buy? Like what does Lamar Jackson cost in a 1 quarterback league? We can see this is 1 quarterback, 10 to 14 team league, half or full PPR, 2 to 3 players in the trade. What do we got? Wow, so you have to add 2 Jalen Hurts to get to Lamar. I still would do that. Like Hurts and Algier, I'd be fine with that. I mean, this is pretty crazy. And again, remember, if there's somebody out there who has Lamar on bye, let's say they already have like a Drake May or a Caleb Williams in front of them, you can maybe buy Lamar at a discount, where if you're like streaming quarterbacks, or maybe you were going to rely on Brock Purdy and he let you down, or you've been riding with Justin Fields and it's looking really shaky for him right now, I love a deal like this. Keenan Allen and J.K. Dobbins get Lamar. That's easy. Would I add Kittle to Caleb to get Lamar? I would, but I wouldn't be crazy about it. Addison to May to get Lamar, pretty easy there. Waddle's like the most I would pay. Not that this isn't what Lamar is worth, but that's like the most I would pay. I will stay in a start 7. So what's this? 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. I don't hate that, because I will say as well, like the shallower your lineup is, right? So this is only 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex spot. Because it's only 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, your quarterback and tight end get a boost, right? Like the amount of real estate in terms of like percentage taken up of your starting lineup only grows the shorter it is for your onesie position. So in these types of setups where if it's like a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, you're even more, it's like even more in your best interest to go out there and trade for a Lamar. We can look at Derrick Henry real quick as well. Rashad White, easily. Kendrick Bourne, easily. Devontae Adams to get Derrick Henry, and Debo, easily. Pickens for Derrick Henry. That's as much as I would pay. Is there anything else that's like realistic on here? Trey Benson and Ibuka for Henry. No, I wouldn't, because my thought process is like, if you're trading away Ibuka, I would really only do so if I needed a right here and now replacement, because Ibuka's not going to be back for a few weeks. Derrick Henry being on bye just doesn't really check out to me. Adding Hunter to Judkins get Henry, I would do that as well. And then we'll also look at Zay Flowers here to see what he's going for. I imagine like DJ Moore for Flowers easily. I prefer Flowers over Pittman. I prefer Flowers over Vidal. Flowers versus Dowdle is really close. If Dowdle isn't cracking your starting lineup because you have that much running back depth, then I would take Flowers there. But to me, that's a coin flip. Metcalf for Flowers and Swift, easily I would do that. That's not a bad idea, tearing down from Metcalf to get the Flowers and a piece on top. Now, our next buy, similar situation, is going to be the Bills. Another, blue chip offense on bye. Can you go to that owner, right? Can you go to the James Cook owner? Can you go to the Josh Allen owner and say, hey, you're 2-4. You can't afford to wait for this guy to go on bye. Can I buy them for cheap, right? This is a blue chip offense, like I said. Josh Allen's been good this year, but I think he can be even better. And then James Cook started out the season with 4 straight 20-plus PPR point games. And then the last 2 games the Bills have lost, and James Cook has scored under 10 PPR points in those games. I have to assume out of the bye, they're going to make it a point of emphasis to get James Cook more involved, because when he is involved, they win football games. And it's kind of that simple. The Bills' defense also isn't good either. They're like in the bottom 10 to 15 of EPA per play, where they're not like a liability, the Bills' defense, but we have seen, like in week 1 when the Ravens put up 1 billion points on them. Same thing with the Patriots the other week. They've not been, like Bijan just ran all over them on prime time. They're not the best, so you're going to get some shootout environments. Now, in terms of what you can pay to get these Bills players on your team, let's see. James Cook, again, 2 down weeks here. He's still like a top 6 or 7 running back for me long-term in rest of season rankings. What can we get him for? Would I add to Hurts? Yeah, I would. Hurts and Warren for Cook pretty easily. Swift, Dowdle, that's just not realistic. I would do Scatterbo and Dobbins for James Cook. I would, and I love Scatterbo, but at a certain point you just have to accept, like, yeah, that's just a price I'd be willing to pay. Egbuka and ETN, no thank you. Let's see, Odunze and Dowdle for Cook. That's as much as I would pay, and I would only do it if I had enough wide receiver depth to justify selling Odunze. That's as much as I would pay. Nico Collins and Rashad White. That's as much as I would pay. AJ Brown and Brees, no thank you. Scatterbo and Waddle. Probably no thank you. Wow. So there's not really a huge I would do this, Kyron and Wandale for James Cook, I would do instantly. And then we can look at Josh Allen. And this is, again, does the Josh Allen guy, even if he's not hurting on bye week, does the Josh Allen guy, does he have Drake May behind him or Caleb Williams behind him or something like that? And can you just sort of pluck him off? Like Vidal and Sutton, is he hurting at running back and wide receiver? That's not going to get you super close, but it's going to get you in the ballpark. Bourne and DeAndre Swift, no, that's not realistic. I got to be honest, I'm not seeing many that I like. Could you do something like, even if you don't get Dowdle in return, could you do Javonte for Josh Allen? I wouldn't hate that. I would only do Waddle for Josh Allen if I didn't need Waddle. See, this I like. Can I upgrade from my Drake? Can you upgrade from Drake May, Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott, and add in a guy like David Montgomery? I like that a lot. Now, our next player that you can go out there and buy, and this is for teams looking to get a spark, clawing to get wins. I think Jamir Gibbs is a great buy low. Now, yes, is he going to be expensive? Sure, but this is probably going to be the cheapest that you can acquire a player that I would still take in the first round today if we were drafting fantasy teams. He's my RB4 rest of season, and everything that we've wanted to happen has happened so far. When we look at his usage in terms of volume and opportunity, it's been there. If we compare it weeks 1 through 6 this year versus what he had last year with David Montgomery in terms of expected points per game. So that's just your volume, your red zone attempts, target share. What should you be scoring? Last year was 14.2. This year, 15.5. In terms of weighted opportunities, so this gives more weight to targets, but it's just a way of just essentially like touches, right? It's your targets, it's your carries. This year, he has 18.1 weighted opportunities per game. Last year was 14.4, so that's he's getting 4 more weighted opportunities per game this year. Snap share, he has a higher snap share this year, higher rush attempt share, higher target share. Now, when we look at this as well, this is from Jacob Gibbs. Jamir Gibbs has now had a 70% snap rate in Week 6 and handled 17 of 21 backfield attempts. Gibbs has registered a snap rate of 70% twice in 6 2025 games after previously never hitting that rate in a game with David Montgomery healthy. So that's really impressive. He's getting all the volume in the world. He just hasn't come through on efficiency. Now, I will say, they do lose this game, and Campbell says he would like to balance the backfield out. So that does pour some cold water on what I've kind of talked through here. Maybe we see things split more. Maybe we see more efficiency go towards Jamir Gibbs because of that. But then also I will say that coach speak is just coach speak. And Dan Campbell, yes, oversees the whole operation. It's still Morton calling plays. And it seems like they've heavily leaned into Jamir Gibbs. And I think he's going to start paying off here very soon on this volume, right? If we can just find some of that efficiency from last year, if we can score some touchdowns on the highest scoring offense in football right now, I think everything's going to be absolutely fine for Jamir Gibbs. He does get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. The Bucs are allowing the 11th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, so it should be a positive game script for Gibbs. Again, he's still my RB4 rest of season, and if I could buy him because he's the RB9 in points per game right now off a season low 7.5 PPR points, I'd be looking to buy all day long. Now, if we look at the trade database here, what is Gibbs going for? Can you buy low? Can you get him for cheap? Scatterbo and Pickens for Jamir Gibbs. Wow. That's a pretty penny, man. That's a pretty penny. I would, though. Scatterbo and Pickens, I would. Chase, I would as well. I just feel better about Gibbs than I do Chase attached to Joe Flacco. How long is that going to really last? Would I add McLaurin to Jacobs to get Gibbs? I would, but I'm also just very low on McLaurin. Odunze and Judkins for Jamir Gibbs, I would. Kamara, Chase, no. That's probably where I say no. Is there anything else that's close? I would add Ollie Gordon to Chase to get Gibbs. I would. Let's find one more. Judkins and Igbuka for Gibbs. I would. If I couldn't wait for Igbuka to come back from injury, and then I could upgrade Judkins to Gibbs, I think that move actually makes a lot of sense on paper. Then my fourth buy is going to be Bill Crosky Merritt. This is just a universal buy. You can be in really any spot here, but the overall sentiment on Bill is very negative right now, right? He has fumbled in back-to-back games. He was involved in the game-losing fumbled handoff exchange, and he had his second worst PPR performance of the year with only 5.8 PPR points. But I think that people don't really understand that his usage in this game, even with the fumble, was super, super encouraging, right? If we look at Adam Levitan's tweet here, in terms of rush share in this backfield week by week, 50%, 33%, 34%, 43%, 70%, and then 89% this past week. So this was actually the best week for Bill Crosky Merritt in terms of usage on the entire year, despite the production and kind of the perception of the fumble not matching up with what his volume looked like. But still, even though he was inefficient in this game, he's still, for the most part, super efficient on the entire year. You look at Datarama's tweet here. In terms of running backs and rushing yards over expected per attempt, it is Montgomery, Bijan, Bill Crosky Merritt, Rico Dowdle, Quinshawn Judkins. That's not a perfect stat, by the way, but Bill Crosky Merritt is running well. He's also 5th in the NFL in rush grade, and he's behind only Rico Dowdle and Bijan Robinson in yards per carry at 5.7. He has been one of the best rushers of the football this season, and I think that we are going to see him get continued usage after not a good game against the Bears, but an encouraging game in terms of his volume in that game. And I think that we are going to see him bounce back in a big way versus Dallas this week, who is allowing the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. We've seen Rico Dowdle run wild on them last week. Now, in terms of what Bill is going for, let's see. Because this was supposed to be like the big game. It was kind of like a big letdown that he didn't do well. And I assume that the guy who has him is probably frustrated. Would I add Tucker to Walker to get to Bill? Probably not. Would I do... Oh, my God. If I could sell Kyron... I would sell Kyron for Rashi straight up. But if I could sell Kyron for Rashi and Bill, I would. I wouldn't do Dowdle for Bill, as funny as that might be. Would I do... No. Would I do... Some of these aren't great. Hubbard and Jameson Williams for Bill. I would do that. But that's as much as I would pay. Would I do Scatabo for ETN and Bill? Only if I needed the running back depth. Would I sell Marv for Bill? Yeah, pretty easily. Would I sell Javonte for Kittle and Bill? Yeah. The trade analyzer has you losing that one, but I would. Javonte, not that I'm like dying to get off Javonte, but like if I don't have a good tight end, you get an elite tight end right away, and then Bill is like an RB2 downgraded from Javonte. That's not bad at all from what I'm looking at. If you can downgrade from Kenneth Walker and get him like Bill and Devontae for Kenneth Walker, I think is a great little trade there. Then we have another buy for anybody out there. We have a lot of luxury buys. If you're out there and you're doing well in your league, you're 5-1, you're 6-0, I think Puka makes a lot of sense. Shout out to the Flock League. I know a lot of my viewers, we share kind of the same demographic. So if you're out there watching the Flock League, this trade went down. I actually really like it for Danny. Danny already has, I believe it was Caleb Williams he was telling me. So he didn't need Jaden Daniels. Like he had 2 good quarterbacks already. So, and I actually kind of love that. Like I love elite quarterbacks, but if you did draft a guy late, like let's say you have a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, or I'm trying to think of like the worst one that I would go to if I would sell my elite quarterback, but that's probably the group. The group would be like Drake May, Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott. I doubt you drafted Baker with Josh Allen, but did you grab like, I was going to say Jackson Dart, but I don't think so. Like Dart's so up and down and the medical 10 stuff, I don't think that he's good enough that I'd move off the elite quarterback. But if I was in a spot like that, moving off Jaden Daniels, adding Drake London to him, and then upgrading the Puka, I think is amazing. This was a guy a week ago was untouchable. He was my 101 in fantasy football if we were redrafting today. In my rest of season rankings, I have him as like my 106, like somewhere as like a mid first round pick. And if this injury is now a pathway to acquiring a player who was once thought of as untouchable, I would be doing that all day long. I don't think that this ankle sprain is going to be a big deal at all. He returned in this game. They're going to probably keep him out for the London game, but Sean McVay said here that Puka Nacua is day-to-day, hopeful that both could play in Sunday's London game against the Jaguars, but they will be monitored throughout the week. Coach Speak Index just comes over the top here, where he kind of tracks the reliability rating of coaches on injury Coach Speak, and Sean McVay's a 90% reliability rating. We expect Puka Nacua and Blake Corum to miss no more than 1 game. My baseline expectation is Puka misses this week, bye week next week, and then he's ready to roll. And I will say, too, which is kind of the funny part on the Ibuka and Puka stuff, is we're very fortunate that they got hurt in the window of their bye week. Because if you remember with Nico Collins last year, he gets hurt early on, and then he comes back from the hamstring injury, I believe, and then he had his bye week late in the season. If you can kill two birds with one stone, where if you can get healthier from an injury on your bye week, to me, that's a huge plus. So I actually really like that for Puka. I would have a Puka as a bye as well for that reason. Like, again, just merging those together so that the bye week isn't a separate thing. Because if you miss time for injury and then later in the season got to miss another week for a bye week, it just sucks. So kind of knocking all that out in one go, I think, is the best thing for fantasy football. I know that that's like a weird way of viewing it, but again, if you can just sort of use the bye week as a recovery week for the injury, I think that that is a lot better for you in fantasy. And then in terms of what Puka's going for, because I do wonder, like, if there's a Puka team out there 2-4, they feel like, man, I can't wait for 2 weeks of no Puka. Can you go out there and buy him for cheap? I mean, Jacobs and A.J. Brown, wow. That's as much as I would pay. I would add David Montgomery to Rashee Rice to get Puka. Lad and Rico, that's a no-doubter. I actually don't hate that idea. I love Rashee Rice, but if you can use kind of the hype of Rashee Rice, this is the week he returns and everyone wants to try and buy him one last time. If you can be like, hey, if you want Rashee Rice, just give me Puka Nacua. I actually kind of love that idea. What else sticks out? Mike Evans and Devon Achane. Wow. Probably can't. Chase and Kenneth Walker. Again, that's as much as I would pay. So he's still going for a little bit here, man. Kyron and Waddle I would do, but that's just not on the table, I don't think. Would I do Rashee Rice and Odunze? Wow. It's another one of those ones that's like the most I would pay. You got to pay up if you want him. Chase and Laporta, I would, but that's another one of those. Like, that's the most I would pay. So you see, it's not really a buy low with Puka, but he went from genuinely untouchable to now he's at least within a reason of being able to buy him. And then our last player we'll talk about, we touched on him yesterday. You guys are probably tired of me talking about Pacheco, but his usage was so encouraging. I know that Kareem Hunt was banged up, but I just don't see them doing this Kareem Hunt thing much longer, where Kareem's just not what he once was. He's not that good. And Pacheco, the usage is at least there that I think that we could see Pacheco start to be a startable running back. And if that's the case, whatever you can buy him for right now is going to be a nice little profit, where he set season highs in snap share, rush attempt share, route share, target share, and short down and distance snaps last week. And I think that if that can carry in this week against the Raiders, that Pacheco can be like a high-end RB3 startable player in your lineup with upside to be an RB2 for the rest of the year. Now, in terms of what you have to pay to get him, again, for Pacheco, it can't be a lot. Unless if, like, I'm not one of the only guys talking about this and, like, he's now, like, a popular buy. Yeah, I mean, get out of here. Keon Coleman, Judy. I mean, that's just pack. Yeah. If I could sell Keon Coleman, Judy, if I could sell Trey Tucker straight up for him, if I could sell Khalil Shakir for him easily. Golden for Pacheco is really close. That just depends on what I need more, especially in this league where it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. Like, if Matthew Golden doesn't have a prayer of ever cracking my 2 wide receiver spots in 1 flex, then I'm down to sell him for Pacheco all day long. But that's going to do it for us today. As always, these buy and sell videos are based off of my rest of season rankings over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. If you want to see, Pacheco versus RJ Harvey, where I have those guys ranked rest of season, you can find that there. Also, I will have my week 7 rankings out later on today. It is Thursday today. You can get that all over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart in the description and the comment section down below. But if you can't support there, just leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm